and won't even get through it. So, one of two things. Let me get to my first page here. Okay, so I am happy to be here and excited to share with you, and I am a little on the nervous side too. But what I have decided to share with you today is lessons that I learned while I was in Africa. You have the story of like a child, and you tell a child the stove is hot, but sometimes until the child touches the stove, it doesn't realize it's hot. Or the child may know or may believe you that it's hot, but they may have to touch it to know how hot it is. So the lessons I learned were things that I maybe knew up here, but going over there, it was like touching the hot stove. So before I get started, if you would bow with me in prayer. Heavenly Father, as I come before you, I pray that you would give me clarity of thought and speech, and that the message that is given, that comes across, it is your message, because it is for your glory and for your honor. In Jesus' name. All right. So, serving Christ in Malawi. You can give without loving, but you can't love without giving. That was a quote that Amy Carmichael had, and it stuck with me. A little housekeeping for those that brought gifts for me to take to Africa. Those gifts were well received, and I am passing on a heartfelt thank you. So the different games and the soccer ball, but as they call it in Africa, football, they were well used and well received. So thank you for that. My first lesson that I learned was, I learned that to be a missionary in Africa and live like an American is expensive. But to be a missionary in Africa and live like an African is very cheap. And the Apostle Paul said in 1 Corinthians 9:22 through 23, "To the weak I became as weak, that I might win the weak. I have become all things to all men, that I might by all means save some. And now this I do for the gospel's sake, that I may be partaker of it with you." So, the KB Hotel, when we flew into Dar es Salaam in Tanzania, it was myself and there was a college student, Elliot, from Columbia, Missouri. So it was the two of us that went. We flew into Dar, and it was very late that evening, and Village Schools had Sophie meet us there at the airport, and we went to the KB Hotel. Now, the KB Hotel is not your Holiday Inn or your the other name brand American hotels that you hear of. The KB Hotel is a hotel that the Tanzanians use. In truth, the only white American that you would see staying at that hotel is people that come through village schools. A lot of them fly into Dar es Salaam, and then they stay at the KB, and then they disperse out to wherever they're going. So the KB Hotel, it was good. It was clean. You had you had a comfy bed, and you had your accommodations. Did it have all of the American conveniences? No, it did not. But were my needs met? Yes, they were. And while I was in Africa, I like to doodle and do the adult coloring books. And so I had colored some pictures, and they had different verses on. And on my return back here to the States, we were also back in Dar at the KB before we flew out. And I left a thank you, and one of the coloring pages I colored had the verse, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." So the KB Hotel supplied my needs, and as God is my shepherd, my needs were met. So, and just during the course of being in Africa, it really is true. If you go and you live as an African, and you live in their accommodations, you eat the food they eat, it is cheaper than if I would have gone as an American and had the American conveniences and accommodations. But as I said, I lacked nothing. It was all good. My mouth is already dry, so I'm going to take another drink of water. The second lesson I learned that language learning is communication, and it is ministry. With a learning is communication perspective, one can have the unique opportunity to learn important cultural knowledge in the context of community relationships, right where ministry opportunities are. So, a little pop quiz. When you see the picture of a well, what Bible story do you think of?
What
Bible story. What? Jacob? The woman at the well? Yeah. That was just to think about. So, when after we left Dar, we went to Medici, which is like the headquarters. It is where village school started. It's where the first village school was built. And there we had training. Mr. Vinton taught us some of the policies and procedures and expectations. And then we also, during that course, we stayed with a host family, and I stayed at Alika's home, and she taught me different African culture and what was acceptable, what was not acceptable, just to where I wouldn't, or to where I maybe wouldn't put my foot in my mouth too many times. So, She was a good teacher. Two of the lessons she taught me was mopping a cement floor and washing clothes. So I was at her house over the weekend, and Saturday must be kind of like their house cleaning day. And she was busy. She had swept, and we had gotten a bucket of water, and I'm like, and I asked her, and I said, "So mopping?" And she's like, "Yes." And then I don't remember why, but she got distracted, not really distracted, but she left and was outside. And I'm like, okay, I can start mopping the cement floor. Good. And so I got down and I was mopping, and she comes in, and the look on her face was like, I had never mopped a floor before. And I was like, oh my goodness, what could I possibly be doing wrong? I mean, it's a cement floor. And I'm like, not good? And she's like, no. And I'm like, okay, like, what do I need to do? And she's like, twice. You mopped twice. And I'm like, oh, I just need to mop the floor again? And she's like, yes. So I mopped the floor. I thought it was clean, but I went back and I mopped it a second time because that's what they do. If one's good, I guess twice is better. So, and then I was like, okay, I don't want to blunder too much. In the afternoon, we went out to wash clothes. And she had her tub of water, and she had put soap and was scrubbing. I had my tub, and I was scrubbing clothes. And I was like, okay, I want to make sure I do this their way. And so I kept looking over at her and seeing what she did, and she kept scrubbing. And so I kept scrubbing. She turned her garment inside out, put more soap on it, and was scrubbing. So I turned my garment inside out, and I kept scrubbing, and seriously, I thought my garment was clean. But she kept on scrubbing, so I kept on scrubbing, and when she was done, I was done. And she grabbed the next article of clothing, and I grabbed the next one, and I followed her cue. And then, so I learned that, I guess overall that cleaning, if you think it's clean, I guess just clean it for another 2 minutes and then it's good. So, then on Sunday, I went with her to her church. And, of course, everything was in Swahili. In Tanzania, they speak Swahili. In Malawi, they speak Chichewa. So, of course, the service was in Swahili. I had no idea what they were saying. And Alika was there, and I had my notebook. And she had taken it, and she was writing something down. And she was writing the Bible reference that they were reading, like the scripture. And then she handed it over to me, and I was looking at it, and then I was getting ready to pull my Bible out of my bag. And the lady behind us, she handed Alika her Bible. And her Bible was a parallel Bible. It was English on one side and Swahili on the other side. And so then Alika took that and she went to the passage that they were at, and then she handed it to me. And I still didn't know Swahili, but at least it put it in a parallel context. And then after the service, I still had the lady's Bible, and I went to give it to her, and I said, thank you, which in Swahili, it's asante sana, and she's like, no, and she was like not going to take her Bible back, and I'm like, hapana, which is no. I'm like, no, thank you for letting me use it, but she was going to, she was willing to give me her Bible because she knew it was of help with the English and the Swahili. And that was something she didn't have to do. It touched my heart that she saw that and she took it upon herself. And so I was like, Hapana, which, like I said, is no. And I gave her Bible back. But the people were very caring. As far as if you, they were very caring, and they made sure that you were well cared for in all areas. The last one, buying charcoal, which that happened in Malawi. So after our, it wasn't even a week, but our 4 or 5 days of training, then we went by car. It was a 3-day car ride from where we were at in Tanzania to where we went in Malawi. And it was not because it was that many miles, it's just the road conditions are not good. So potholes and traffic and a combination of a lot of things, it just makes going 10 miles going 100 miles, in comparison. The buying charcoal lesson was in Malawi. I'm sorry, but my mouth is dry, so bear with me. We got to Kasimba, which was the village I was at, I was staying with Jean. Jean was there some of the times. When she wasn't, another teacher, Carmen, was there. Some of the times I was there at the house by myself. But we had got there and we were getting things set up and prepared. And we needed to get charcoal at the shop. And I was like, okay, I can go down to the shop and get some charcoal. So I walked down there and I asked for charcoal, and at that time I didn't know charcoal was called Mancala or Macala. And but the guy at the shop, he knew some English, and he was like, no, we don't sell charcoal. And so I walked back to my house, and I told Jean, I said, they don't sell charcoal there. And she's like, yeah, they do. And I'm like, the guy told me no charcoal. And she's like, well, where did you go? And I told her, and she's like, oh, no, not at that shop. You have to go to the other shop and that we bought rice at. And I'm like, okay. So my second attempt, I went to the second shop. And I was like, asked if I could buy charcoal. And they were like, no, we have no charcoal. And I'm like, okay, I'm pretty sure I'm at the right shop now. But they still had no charcoal. So I went back, and Jean's like, they didn't have charcoal? And I'm like, no, they said no. I said no. I was like, so she's like, okay. And I had to leave, and I went to teach school that morning. And she went, and when I got home that evening, she had got charcoal, and so we had charcoal. But, of course, charcoal runs out, and so we were needing more charcoal. And I'm like, okay, well, off we go to buy charcoal again. And I was headed to buy charcoal, and of course there were some village children that liked to come, I was the first white person they saw, so I was attraction just being the white person. Anyways, I was like, charcoal, and they're like, Macala. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, you want to come with me? Because I was like, if they don't get my message, they can probably understand those village students. And so we went, and I had my little village children, and I went to the shop, and I'm like, charcoal. And they're like, no. I'm like, McCullough? And they're like, no. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I didn't realize charcoal could be that difficult. And I looked at the village school students, or the children, and I'm like, say, McCullough, explain to them that is what I was wanting to buy. And they just stood there and smiled at me. And I'm like, you're not being helpful. And so then I went back and I told Jean, I'm like, I don't know, but they do not understand that I want to buy charcoal. So you need to go down and just interpret for me because we don't understand. And so she went. I was not with her. She went, and she came back, and she's like, They now understand that when you go, you want charcoal, but they thought you wanted to buy chalk. And I'm like, no, I did not want to buy chalk. But part of that was, I was teaching there. Of course, there was a blackboard. And so I don't know if it was just an assumption that I was needing chalk, not charcoal. And I even tried to use the word McCullough, and I'm like, did I say it wrong? And Jean's like, I don't know, but she's like, they understand now. So my fourth time, I was like, okay, we are going to get charcoal bought. And I went there. I was walking down there to the shop, and there was a lady that was across the road, and she saw me coming, and she hurried over to the shop and said something to the shopkeeper, and the shopkeeper was nodding its head, and I went, and I'm like, Quacha, McCullough, and they're like, yeah, Aya. And they went, and I got 4 bags of charcoal. I'm like, okay, we're good, 4 bags of charcoal. So I took that back, and I felt pretty successful. After the 4th attempt, I got my charcoal bought. But it was about a week before I left, I understood the real charcoal success story. So Carmen was there at the house at the time, and she said that she had gone to a friend's house, village, and she said on her way back she would get charcoal because for supper that night we would not have had enough charcoal to have cooked supper. So she said that she would bring it back, and I was there at the house. It was getting late, and I'm like, where's Carmen? And I'm like, she must have got delayed. And so I'm like, I'm just going to go get some charcoal so that we have it for supper tonight, because otherwise there maybe would have been enough for supper, but probably not for breakfast. So, and I did like my tea for breakfast. So I went and I got 2 bags of charcoal, and I brought it back, and I had started the fire. I had put the water on to boil, and I don't know if we were having sweet potatoes that night. I don't know, but I was starting to do preparations for supper. And she comes in with a bundle of firewood, and I'm like, why do you have firewood? She's like, well, why do you have charcoal? And I'm like, well, I went and got charcoal because I wasn't for sure what your delay was. She's like, well, I just came from the charcoal shop, and they said they had no charcoal. And I'm like, well, I said, I went and they didn't, and I asked for charcoal, and the lady told me to wait. And I said, and I waited for quite a while before she came back with 2 bags of charcoal. And she's like, well, they told me no charcoal. And I'm like, well, they gave me 2 bags. And in that moment, my heart told me that the lady knew that I had a need of charcoal. And so she went out of her way. I don't know where she went, but I have a feeling that she went out of her way, went and got charcoal from someplace and brought it back because that is what I needed. When Carmen went, she was like, oh, you're an African, you can go get firewood and get it figured out. But I mean, that's how I felt, because she knew she wanted to supply what my need was. So I did learn that language. I learned that language learning is communication. If I would have been able to have gone to the shop and said, Inu, Kwacha, Makala, they probably would have understood maybe the first time that's what I wanted, but I would not have had 4 to 5 trips to the shop building. I would not have had that interaction, that ministry with the people in the village. So I truly believe that that when we are open to learning from other people, having other people teach us, showing us, or us showing vulnerability, that it does open doors for ministry. So that was my lesson number 2. Lesson number 3. Okay. It's God hold us to that which drew us for. Excuse me. God hold us to that which drew us first, when the cross was the attraction and we wanted nothing else. Then the song, The Old Rugged Cross. Oh, that old rugged cross, so despised by the world, has a wondrous attraction for me. For the dear Lamb of God left his glory above to bear it to dark Calvary. So I'll cherish the old rugged cross till my trophies at last I lay down. I will cling to the old rugged cross and exchange it someday for a crown. So I have been asked, so what did you go and do? What did you go and see while in Africa, like on the tourist attraction list? And what I did, I went to Marine's Garden, and I went to Bunda Mountain. From the school, from Kasimba, where I was teaching at, off at a distance, you could look and you could see Bunda Mountain. And it was something that, some of the people had done. There were teachers that were there at Kasimba that had not climbed up Bunda Mountain. And so there was some arrangements being made for us to go. And so myself and Dean and Carmen is the one in the pink, and Marine and Alfred, and then Elliot, the person from Columbia, Missouri. We went one Saturday. I believe it was Saturday. Anyway, so we went and we climbed Bunda Mountain. And then the next weekend, there was talk about like maybe going to Malawi Lake, but it wasn't like decided for sure. And Maureen had asked if I wanted to go to her garden, and I'm like, yeah, I would like to go to your garden. And so we were making plans to go to her garden on Saturday, which, like, her garden is like probably 5-6 miles away from the village I was staying at. And it's like, it was close to the village that she lived in before she came in and was a teacher there at Kasimba. So, like, to her home village, her garden was close. But she was a teacher at Kasimba, so for her to go to her family garden, I mean, it was the 5-6 miles to go. And so I was like, yeah, I'll go. And and the plans for Malawi Lake had not been finalized. And so then they were telling me that, yes, that they were going to Malawi Lake. And I'm like, well, I've already made plans. I told Maureen I would go with her to her garden. And Maureen, in the course of time, realized that I was given the opportunity to go to Lake Malawi. And she's like, well, why wouldn't you go to Lake Malawi? And I'm like, well, Maureen, I said, I told you that I would go to your garden. And I said, I've made friends here. I said, you're my friend. So why would I not want to go spend the time with you at your garden opposed to going to Lake Malawi? She's like, really? Like, you would want to come and more or less spend time with me and go to my garden than when you have the opportunity to go to Lake Malawi? And I'm like, yeah. I said, let's go to your garden. I said, besides, I like gardens. I have a garden at home in America, and I'm kind of missing it. So let's go to your garden. And so that weekend, I went with her to her garden. We left Saturday morning, and we worked in her garden that day, and we came home. And it was a good day. So then another place I went was Alan's village. Alan is a young, he's like the young man on this side. He was one of my students at Kasimba. And he wanted me to go to his village and meet his family. And I'm like, yeah, I can go after school. I'll walk with you. I said, I don't know where your village is. And so after school, I walked with him to his village, and I met his family. His mom was at work, so the lady is his aunt, Caroline, and that is his nephew, Poe, and that would be his grandfather. After I stayed and I had supper with Caroline, she had made sima with a relish, and then I told her, I said, well, I think I should probably be heading back. And Alan's like, I'll escort you. And I'm like, well, if you wanted to just escort me back to the main road, I said, from the main road, I think I can find my way back to Kasimba. And he's like, okay. And so he escorted me to the main road. And I was like, okay. I said, I got it. And he's like, no. And I'm like, Alan, you don't have to walk all the way back to Kasimba with me. And he's like, I will. And I'm like, okay, I'll just let it go. I mean, if that is what determines that he needs to do, then he can escort me all the way back. But that evening, I don't know the exact miles, and I really don't think I'm exaggerating, but his village was quite a ways away. So in miles, I would say at least 2 miles. That's really probably not an exaggeration. And so he had walked to school that morning. He walked with me back to his village, and then he escorted me all the way back home, and then he walked back home. Now, how many miles was that? 8 miles. So, it just made me stop for a moment, because when you think of attractions, like what draws a person to something? Like, what would have drawn me to have gone to Lake Malawi? It would have been because it was a known tourist place. What drew me to go to Marine's Garden? What drew me to go to Bunda Mountain? What drew Alan to want me to go to his village? I think when we think of attractions and places we go and things we see, we need to ask the question, what is drawing us to that? Is it because that's what everybody else does? Is that the popular thing to do? Or is it love? So, my final lesson I learned, I told you I would get caught up in my storytelling. I better hurry up. I learned what to rejoice in. So, it was getting toward the end, and I was just like, a little American was coming out, and I was like, okay, so I'm going to go back, and what am I going to say that I did that was successful? You know, we all come back with successful stories. And I'm like, I don't know. And I was washing clothes, and like I said, the village children, I think they knew where I was at even before I knew where I was at. I think, I don't know, in a way, I think I had a spy on me, and whenever they saw me, then like all of a sudden there was 20. I don't know how it happened, but I mean, they, so like that, I was outside washing clothes. It was a guarantee that before long, there would be 20 children over there. And it did come in helpful a couple times because they wanted to go play a couple new games that I had taught them. And I'm like, no, I need to wash clothes. And they're like, and so they I didn't even say anything, but they grabbed my empty bucket and went and filled it up with water again. The other two knelt down there at the tub and started scrubbing clothes with me. And that day, before I knew it, my laundry was done really, really fast. And one of the games I had taken that they liked was Uno. And so it was, I had taught them how to play Uno so they knew. And it was, like I said, a little bit before I came back, that of course, I was out washing clothes and everybody, they knew where I was at. And they came over and was wanting skanda, which is Uno. And I was like, no, I have to wash clothes. I said, but I will get you the Uno cards. You know how to play, and I will wash my clothes. So they were over there playing Uno, and I was washing clothes. And I had hung a skirt on the line. And then all of a sudden, Gertrude, She jumps up, the other two simultaneously, just like lightning. And they started saying stuff in Chichewa very fast, and I was like, oh my goodness, what is going on? And I even looked behind me to see if there was something. And because I was thinking catastrophic. I mean, it was, and they come over and they point at my skirt, and I'm like, yeah, I said, I washed it. And they were pointing, and I'm like, what's wrong? And they're like, it's not clean. And I'm like, it's not clean? And I'm like, oh my goodness. And they were correct. There was a spot that I missed that was like a dirt stain. And so I took that skirt off the line, and I took it back over to the wash tub, and I put soap on it, and I scrubbed a little bit longer. And my thought of, well, what have I done that's been successful? My thought was, well, I can't even do laundry. I'll have to go back and say, I can't even successfully wash my laundry or my clothes after 2.5 months. But then, I don't know if it was that day or the next day, but I was reading in My Utmost for His Highest, and this was a passage, and underneath was it's just a paraphrase of what was in the devotion. It is from Luke 10:17 through 24. Then the 70 returned with joy, saying, Lord, even the demons are subject to us in your name. And he said to them, I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. Behold, I give you the authority to trample on serpents and scorpions and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing shall by any means hurt you. Nevertheless, do not rejoice in this, that the spirits are subject to you, but rather rejoice because your names are written in heaven. Now, I'll leave the preaching for Pastor Jim, because there's a lot of that in the middle that could be broke down different ways. But whatever way you break down the middle, it doesn't change the end. When Jesus says to rejoice that your name is written in heaven. Jesus Christ says, in effect, don't rejoice in successful service, but rejoice because you are rightly related to me. The snare in Christian work is to rejoice in successful service, to rejoice in the fact that God has used you. You never can measure what God will do through you if you are rightly related to Jesus Christ. So, I come back, and I am rejoicing. I am rejoicing that my name is written in heaven. I have a few slides, and I don't rejoice in this, but I did enjoy it, and I enjoyed it because it reminded me of myself, or me and my sisters playing dollies. Growing up was what we did. So I went to Inez's house, and Inez was another teacher there at Kasimba. And her daughter, Inez was the teacher, Inez was her daughter. Inez and some of her friends, they had put together, in essence, their own little playhouse, but it was village-style playhouse. And so these are just some pictures of me and playing village schools playhouse. And of course, I've played with many different children. And they say that if you want to know where your heart is, to check or to look at your checkbook to see where you've spent your money, well, if you want to know where your home is, play with children, because they play the exact same way that they grow up in. So Of course, like they had different things, different play toys. I mean, they were very resourceful. They used what they could find. They made things. But in essence, they played a village school life. And then there's one more there. And yes, it was to my shame. That was the biggest size of bucket that I could hold on my head and balance. That is nothing compared to what the African ladies were able to do by any means. So my final lesson, I was prepared to take God to the people, but I learned that the missionary does not take God to the people. God takes the missionary to the people, and he is there before the missionary arrives. It was quite silly of me to think that I could take the God who is omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent anywhere. I truly believe that God took me to Africa, and I sincerely rejoice, not in anything that was done or accomplished, but I rejoice because my name is written in heaven. I rejoice in the greater mercy. Thank you for your prayers. I know I had people pray for me, and I am thankful for that. I learned a little Chichewa while I was there, and I have a little prayer, and it's in Chichewa, but God hears Chichewa, so if you would bow with me. Malungu wenga abambo enga. Inu nadi wabrino. Ife zikamo ino chafewa chakanda nadi chazamo ea. Ife takuonani lero ea. Ife tina kuonani dezulu ea. Ife takuonani mawa ea. Zikamo cranberry. Mudzina la Yesu. Amen. I have a little song here, and that concludes. Okay, I guess I have 9 minutes to spare. I guess just if there's any questions. Before that, I did go with Village Schools International, and I know that we all have phones, and I know that we all scroll. So instead of explaining to you everything about Village Schools and the work they're doing, which is good, type in villageschools.com. Go to their website and scroll, and you can learn about Village Schools. I encourage you to do that. Like, the next time you get on your phone and you're mindlessly scrolling, I need some water. The next time you get on your phone and you're mindlessly scrolling something that does not make any difference whatsoever, Google villageschools.com and scroll Village Schools. That is my challenge for you. So I guess any questions? Yes.
This is a real spiritual question. What kind of did you have kind of a stove, or how did you use the charcoal and the firewood and stuff? What kind of an apparatus did you have to cook with?
The ground.
Okay.
So if we cooked with fire, which generally, like when we would take a bath, fire heats up faster. And so you could put a pot of water on to boil and get warm water faster. Charcoal we use mainly for cooking. Charcoal cooks slower. So we actually had like a self-containing charcoal, container that we put charcoal in, and then you put your pot on top of that and cook. So, yes.
I saw there were different age groups of kids.
Yes.
So, what age, I guess, dimensions or?
Like you mean at the school? Okay. So at Village Schools, what I taught was the children that would have finished 8th grade government school going into secondary school, which would be like a freshman through senior. Going to school is hard for the people in Africa. Not only school fees, but life is hard. I mean, if they are needed in the field that day, they have to go to the field and work that day. And so you think of here as like one right after the other. It's just if you finished a grade, then when you went back, you started the next grade. So I had students that were in my class that there was like a 4-year difference. So I had like a 13-year-old, a 13-year-old, and then there was also a 17-year-old. So, in essence, if they are able to attend secondary school and go through consecutive, I mean, the 17-year-old won't finish until he's 21. And like the 13-year-old, obviously, he maybe came from a little better home life, more stable, to where he could like attend consecutive, like 1st through 8th grade on government. But like I said, school is hard. There at the end, the support that I received, it exceeded my actual expenses. And so the surplus of that, I chose to have it go towards girls' scholarships, which will allow the girls to be able to go either like free of charge or just really, really cheap. And because girls in the villages, they aren't considered top priority to attend school. The boys, if the family can afford, will send a boy over a girl. And that's just because they figure a girl will get married and have kids and be at home. So, I don't know the exact amount, but it was a surplus, and through your support, it will give a lot of girls an opportunity. Okay.
Would you go again?
We'll see what God says.
Second question.
Yes.
Where'd you stay on those 3 days to get to the place when you were on the road with the
No. Well, we were in 3. There was 8 of us. There was 5. No, there were 2 cars. So there was 9 of us that went. There was the 5 of us in the one car. The other car, there was 4. So I mean, like, it wasn't. Don't imagine like remote, like all the way, because I mean they have towns just like we do have in America. I mean, so they had different places planned to stop. Yeah, I mean to stop where there was a town and and hotel that we stayed at. So, yeah, it was. It was a long 3 days, and typically, like, we would not have had that 3-day trip, because when we left Malawi, we went to the airport in Ilongwe, and from Ilongwe we flew to Dar, which was like an hour and a half flight versus 3 days by car. But the reason being is there is 17, I believe, 17 schools in Malawi, village schools, and there's 15 that have been established. The one I was at had just opened a year ago, September, so it was only 1 year in operation. The other 2, they had built, and they would start classes for the first time here in September. What Village Schools was looking for was to have a volunteer for each village, but it was myself and Elliot that were the only volunteers they had. So they had 2. So we each went to a different village, but they were hoping for 17, and they got 2. So because of that, we went to Tanzania, to Medici, where there were Wendy and Peter and a couple of other ones traveled with us. And then the schools that would not have, like myself or Elliot at, they sent 2 teachers from their school to, it was kind of by Ilongwe, but they sent them to this week training, and in essence, we taught them the English course that I and Elliot taught, and that was just so that then the other villages could have someone there to teach the class as well. They were wanting to have English-speaking people at the village, just because English-speaking people speak it fluently more than like the Africans, but God, there was only 2 of us that went, but yet God still did his work, because the class was still given in all 17 villages. So, I guess let's see.
What was your favorite food, or several of your food, and some that you didn't like, and some of the preparations that you found interesting?
As I told my mom, that when I was there in Malawi, I think I ate the healthiest that I have eaten for quite a while. They eat lots of vegetables. So in some ways, I kind of felt like I was on a vegetarian diet. They have, there's lots of chickens, like, throughout the village. And so eggs are another common thing that you eat. So the eggs are a lot of the protein. Yes, they would butcher a chicken every now and then, but when the chicken's butchered, then that's the end of the chicken. Whereas if you have eggs, you can have that for a few weeks. So as far as, I mean, that's what I ate a lot of, was just vegetables. And then, of course, their main staple is sema, which is made from maize or corn. So, like, bread and butter would be our Kansas bread basket of America. Filler, sema is what their filler was. And then, like I said, the vegetables, and they would make any type of combination of relish, and that's what they would dip the sema in to eat. So it was a lot of the same thing.
Is it like a tortilla, or is it more like cornbread that you bake?
No, like, you boil water and you put the sema in and you mix it, and it's a thicker, it's like pudding, but it's a thicker consistency. Mine turned out like porridge, but you wanted it to be a thicker consistency. And then, I mean, to where you could, like, take it and make a ball and dip it in the relish. My attempts at sema was not very well. I did better at making rice, so I had more rice than sema, just to tell you the truth. Where was I going with that? They would, for breakfast, make sema porridge, which is, you just don't add as much maize in, and then it's porridge. So, but like I said, when my attempts, my sema was more like porridge whenever I would make it. So I got to perfect it, I guess.
Thank you, Charlotte.